80s was that? I don't know about you, but I'm going to go out dancing now. I'm curious, how many of you have never seen that video before? Wow! Some age groups that I never thought, too. Well, welcome to Aretha Franklin. Would you please pray with me? Oh, dear Creator God, may the words of my mouth and the meditations of all of our hearts be acceptable to you, our strength and our Redeemer. Amen. So today we have another classic diva and another classic song in our diva series, where we look to see how we can find God's message for our life in some popular songs from the past years, sung by some classic divas. Aretha Franklin. Wow. Undeniably known as the Queen of Soul. That voice, that look, that feeling. Totally Aretha. Now a little bit of background about her. Aretha's father was a minister, and she began her career as a child singing gospel at her father's Baptist church in Detroit. Then at age 18, she decided that she'd like to start her secular career, and she was 43 in 1985 when she released this song. Now by the time this song was released, not only was she known as the Queen of Soul, but she had appeared many, many times on Soul Train, which was sort of the spin-off of American Bandstand for the African American community. This song was her 15th top 10 pop hit in the U.S., and it earned her her 12th Grammy Award. It was one of the biggest songs of 1985. You know, even though this song is from 1985, it's hard not to get caught up in that bouncy tune and just kind of, bouncing away as she's singing. Now, as a gay man coming of age in the mid-'80s, I can still remember when this song first came out. And you know what? It put a smile on my face every time I saw the video or I heard it on the radio. Now today I turned 62, but I was only 29 at the time when this song came out. Hard to believe I was actually young at one time, huh? City traffic going way too slow. Drop the pedal and go. 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 We're going riding on the freeway of love, winds against our back. We're going riding on the freeway of love in our pink Cadillac. Now, I'll be honest with you, when I was looking at stuff online, there was a very X-rated interpretation of this song. You're not getting that one today. Sorry, you're getting the G-rated version from me today. So when this song came out, that was about the time that MTV was gaining in popularity. And I remember watching this video when it first came out many times in their lineup. Of course, they didn't have nearly as many videos as they have today in their lineup, but nonetheless, it was kind of a fun time for me. So now, a slight digression. I've changed it up just a little. Usually I open with some humor, and those of you that know me know I like to have some humor, a joke in my sermons. So today, a little bit later in the sermon, right now, I'm going to bring you some Freeway humor. And I apologize if you've heard this one before. I think I told it many years ago. But anyhow, so there was a police officer sitting on the side of the freeway when he saw a car just barely going along at a very slow rate of speed. All the other cars were passing this car up and honking their horns. So the police officer decided to pull the car over and perhaps give them a warning about traveling too slow. So when he got up to the car, he followed for a short ways, and he clocked it doing 43 miles an hour. Since the speed limit was 65 there on that part of the freeway, he felt they were endangering other drivers and needed to speed up, so he pulled them over to talk to them. After they pulled off the side of the road, as he was walking up to the car, he noticed the car had 5 elderly ladies in it. And it looked like the youngest, probably in her 80s, was the one doing the driving. As he approached the driver's side of the car, he asked the little old lady if anything was wrong. "No, officer, why?" she said. "Well, I noticed you were going extremely slow, and I thought maybe something might be wrong." "Officer," she said, "I know I'm a bit older, but I was doing the speed limit, 43 miles an hour, like the sign back there said." The officer said, "Lady, that was the highway number, not the speed limit. You're traveling on I-43. The speed limit is actually 65 miles an hour here." "Oh dear," she said, "I'm very sorry. I thought that those signs were the speed limit signs." The officer then looked around and noticed that the other 4 ladies in the car were shaking like leaves. And thinking this a bit strange, the officer asked if they were okay. The elderly lady driving said, "Oh, yeah, they're going to be fine in just a bit. I just came off of I-94. All right, well, hopefully you didn't remember me telling that one a few years ago. So the question is, how many of you, both drivers and passengers, actually like driving on the freeway? You don't have to raise your hands, but just sort of a question. For those that hate driving on the freeway, it's filled with a lot of things to be fearful of, isn't it? High rates of speed, cars zooming along, merging and changing lanes all at 65, 70, maybe 90 miles an hour, depending on where you're driving. Signs zipping by, orange construction zones, lanes closed, detours. I think you get the picture. It's enough to take 10 years off your life, especially if you're not a real confident driver. But perhaps you like the experience. Perhaps the thrill of the speed, the convertible top down like in our video, and the wind blowing through your hair. I used to have longer hair. The beautiful scenery, the billboards, the farms, the cows dotting the landscape, the ability to be hundreds of miles away in a few hours. You can escape the traffic lights, the pedestrians, and the distractions from all the stores and the malls. Well, you know, regardless of your love or hate of the freeways, Freeway of Love is actually such a catchy melody, it kind of makes you want to head out on the freeway and just cast your fears aside and go for a road trip. And what about that pink Cadillac in that video? What's up with that pink Cadillac? Well, now, if you've ever heard of Mary Kay Cosmetics, then you're familiar with a pink Cadillac. Because for Mary Kay Cosmetics, it's the prize that their consultants get when they and their team are on the earn the top 5 sales for the year. So this eye-catching rare car is a reward for motivated employees at Mary Kay, and is a status symbol that says, I am valued, I'm a top employee, and I have been rewarded. Okay, so now back to our song. We set it up a little. We're speeding down the freeway on a fun trip in a sassy, classy pink convertible Cadillac which shouts, "Look at me, I'm special." The wind is at our backs, pushing us along and blowing our hair around. It's a joyride on a beautiful day without a care in the world. No city traffic, no stoplights, just heading out on the road, loving and enjoying the trip. I wonder how we can relate this to today's scripture. Perhaps this song could be interpreted as a metaphor for God's unending love for us. Something to embrace, something to enjoy, something that tells us we indeed are very special and a valuable child of God. After all, our scripture tells us God is love. Whoever lives in love lives in God and God in them. This is part of God's freeway of love, and it's a direct path to God's love to us. All we have to do is hop on that love freeway, push the pedal to the middle, and let God's love and care take us on our journey. For love comes from God, and everyone who loves knows God. If we love one another, then God's love is made complete in us. So, I guess that this drive on the freeway of love is not just really a sit back and relax type of thing. It takes more than just giving the car some gas. It takes us loving one another and making God's love complete. It means actively living in love and living in God. So it bears repeating. God is love. Whoever lives in love lives in God and God in them. It means embracing this ride on the freeway with no fear and letting the wind at our backs push us along our journey of love. City traffic going way too slow. Drop the pedal and go, go, go. We're going riding on the freeway of love, winds against our backs. As we saw from our scripture, there is no fear in love. Perfect love drives out fear. So God doesn't want us to slow down or take any detours on this love journey or be fearful of this journey. Instead, God implores us to accept God's love, to get to know God through God's love, and in turn, love one another and take them along on the ride on God's freeway of love. Or, you know what, at least give somebody the GPS directions of how to get on the freeway of love. And that wind at our backs. Well, now, if that isn't a clear metaphor for God's Spirit, I don't know what is. This is how we know that we live in God and God in us. God has given us the Spirit, the wind at our backs. So once we jump on that freeway of love and start the journey to knowing God and God's love, the Spirit is there to help us along. The Spirit encourages us and gives us direction. The Spirit gives us speed and sure footing to proceed along. The Spirit doesn't slow us down or head us into detours. Rather, the Spirit keeps us on that path of God's love and loving others. Okay, so we got the whole video. We've related it to God's love. What's the good news out of this for us today? I think the good news is that God has called you to live in love, to live in God, to know God's love, and to acknowledge Jesus as God's proof of God's love for you. The good news is that God thinks you're special and has rewarded you as a child of God with access to that special love that God has for you. It may not be in a pink Cadillac, but you're still special to God. And the good news is that God's Spirit will be at your back, pushing you along your journey of God's love. And the good news is that you can release all fear in traveling God's freeway of love. For there truly is no fear in God's love. God's love is made complete in each of us as we love one another, as we accept Jesus as God's gift of love, and as we confidently seek out and follow God's path of love in our lives. Love one another, accept Jesus as God's gift of love, follow God's path of love. Pretty simple. City traffic moving way too slow, drop that pedal and go. Go, go. Go riding on that freeway of love. Winds against our backs. We're going riding on that freeway of love in our pink Cadillac. I hope that every time you hear this bouncy Aretha song, you'll immediately equate it to God's love for you and the Spirit guiding you along. Let it make your heart light and your determination to live in God's love strong. And once you hop on God's freeway of love, there's no turning back. Letting God's love guide you on your journey means that you have nothing to fear, because God's perfect love drives out all fear. Let God's love be made complete in you each and every day, for God's love never ends and is made perfect in each of us as we love others. Amen.
Amen.